Welcome to Asian Book Club, where we highlight Asian and Asian American authors. We are your hosts,
Jamae and Sabangan.
and I'm Stephen Park, and today we bring you Read 3 of Valley Verified by Kyla Zhao. One of the things we see in this read is the character of Zoe getting more into the life of the Bay Area frenzy, and one of those things includes something they do for a hobby, which is board games,
Mm-hmm.
more specifically Settlers of Catan.
For sure.
And personally, both Jamae and I have been getting more into board games over the past year,
Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of been a relief from our normal hobbies. It's been something that we've gotten much more involved in, and we've delved into the harder games and the stuff that I never thought that I would want to learn or read rules for.
Absolutely.
How do you feel about what we've been doing? Because now we have, I think, like 7, 8 new board games. We've tried out many more than that, and a lot of them have been fun, even though they may not be board games that we want to play all the time.
For sure. I feel like what's interesting is that tabletop games is easy for a group of people or even just the two of us to do, which is why we gravitated towards it because we started off with friends and having friends around us who also enjoy board games made it so that it was fun. And the fact that it became almost a weekly ritual made it so that we were able to let off steam and made us look forward to something during the week.
Yeah, and at this point, we're kind of just pulling out a board game when we want to. It's not unfamiliar with what we did in the past because you've always had, I'm going to call it an addiction because that's kind of what it is. You love Scrabble,
I do love Scrabble.
and we would play Scrabble one on one while watching TV or something.
Mm-hmm.
It's always like a 3 hour game because Jamae takes a while on her turns.
It's called deliberating.
It takes 3 hours, and it's been something that for me, it's fun. I like Scrabble, but also the repetitive nature of it, I don't think it had the same value as when we first played it the first couple of times.
What do you mean by the repetitive nature?
Well, because it's the same game. It's different in terms of what's happening on the actual board and the field, I guess, but
Mm-hmm.
it's the same game of like creating the words, and then it
Mm,
didn't have a lot of diversity, or it didn't have a whole lot of depth, or the
like different
yeah,
mechanics.
and the creativity was a little bit more limited. At a certain point, it felt like I didn't really care about scoring against you. It was just more like, okay, like what can we make this board look like?
Mm,
And I think that had a certain limit to how much variability I can have with that game. So it's
mm,
not like I don't like Scrabble anymore. It's just like it was very unilateral. But now we have many more games, and I think the fact that it takes us away from our phones a little bit, the fact
mm,
that it's much more of a tactile stimulation, it's been a source of a lot of creativity based on the games that we do play.
mm-hmm.
It's been really fun to kind of expand the realm of what we do as a couple or with our friends.
Exactly.
We also have, and I think we've mentioned this in the past, but we've also been getting into more Dungeons and Dragons and D&D,
Yes.
which maybe in the future, it's a hope of mine that maybe there's an Asian book club D&D, an
Mm.
ABC D&D.
He's taking that from me. I brought that up.
I was gonna say that. I wasn't gonna take credit. It's definitely Jame's idea, but we'll figure out a book club first, which it seems like some of y'all are interested in. This will be something maybe we do based off of if I can figure out how to do that properly.
Mm-hmm.
But in the meantime, we do have someone that's really good at what she does, and that's gonna be our recommendation for the week.
Our recommendation for the week is Cecile of Cece's Art Cafe. Cece is a full-time illustrator and artist based in New York City. In her work, she celebrates the quiet magic of daily life with inspiration from plants, animals, vintage goods, food, and her cultural heritage. I would say that her illustrations can be characterized as cute, cozy, and colorful. You can learn more about Cece's work through her website at cc'sartcafe.com. That's ccsartcafe.com. And find her on Instagram at Cece's Art Cafe.
Yep, and that's gonna be our recommendation for the week. Okay, So let's go through a read. There's a couple of topics that I want to talk about as it's appeared within the different parts of what's been going on with Zoe.
Mm,
But the biggest thing that's happening right now within the world of Zoe and FitPick is the VC meeting Logan Horrison and trying to get the money that will get this startup going.
mm-hmm.
Initially, it looks pretty good. Logan Horson, even though he's not fully bought in a sense, he seems like he believes in the company. At least from behind the scenes, we see an interest with FitPick. And even though he kind of tears down what FitPick could be, he looks at it as an opportunity of monetization.
Well, he kind of tears down what it is right now because there is no monetization plan. He only sees value in FitPick if it were to bring in profit.
Right. And that becomes one of the main goals for Bill, the CEO. He kind of turns from this character who is driven by what the world might need
Mm-hmm.
and turns into this San Francisco Tech Valley monster that is looking for ways to make money off of this.
For sure.
And we see how that becomes an issue. We see that it starts to change the direction that FitPick starts to go in. And one of those major directions is the monetization through this much bigger ambassador that's Aisha Monroe.
Mm-hmm. Aisha Monroe is this big star in this world. I don't know if this is an actual person, but in this world, people know her very well. However, Zoe knows her so well that she didn't want to work with her to begin with because she's supposed to be a diva of sorts.
Yeah, she carries a bad reputation. She seemingly kind of tries to control the scene and blames other. And it seems to be no different than what we see her do at Fippic.
Yeah.
So Bill gets the final say, even though Zoe is pretty adamant against it.
Mm-hmm.
And Aisha Monroe joins the team with the manatee sign on. And we see her do the same thing. We see her start to edit pictures, which is kind of against the whole point of what FitPick is.
Right.
And when she gets caught, she blames FitPick.
Mm.
This then turns into the issue with what the publicity is going to look like for FitPick. And once again, Valley Verified gets involved, but not in a good way.
Right. Because of Aisha Monroe's Photoshop pictures, Rebecca Stiles, the writer from the Valley Verified column, revised her verdict from fab to fad.
Right. And not only that, Rebecca Stiles comes out with another column that further puts FitPick into a bad hole, but more specifically, it targets Zoe Zeng as an issue and the source of the problem that's at FitPick.
Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, it seems like a source, quote unquote, is the one who kind of made this happen.
Yeah. Who did you think the source was? Because I don't think I had an actual idea of who it might be or who it could be.
Initially, I thought it was someone in the office because it talked about her swanning around and looking down on everyone because of the clothes that they wore. So I initially thought it was Austin and Bram, or Austin or Bram.
Hmm.
But because Zoe reasoned that they became friends, so it's not possible, I started to think maybe it's that Wally Watts person from Dreamcatcher.
Hmm. Like the leader of Dreamcatcher.
Yeah, the chief dream evangelist.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of that relationship, though, that Zoe is creating with Austin and Bram, we see her actually truly forming this relationship. And this is where she goes out and plays board games, which is out of character for her.
Mm-hmm.
But she ends up enjoying the time she's spending with them, so much so that she even ends up missing a call on purpose from Cassie and Bjorn, her original friends from New York.
Well, she doesn't really miss the call. She does take it eventually.
Yeah, but she questioned it so much. It didn't seem like her original self when she got to the valley.
Mm,
It was definitely a thought out process of maybe I just want to stay here instead of talking to these people who I woke up at like 4 a.m. to call before my work or doing all
right.
those things.
Right, definitely.
We also see another relationship start to hit some quarrels,
Mm,
and that's that love interest between Damien and Zoe.
right. But before the quarrel happened, Damien did start opening up to Zoe. And there was that moment where he showed her his application essay and was very vulnerable about it.
Yeah, it was him showing her that what she's done for not only the company, but for him has made a big difference. It's allowed him to start taking risks outside of what's been happening at FitPick and also allowed him to start going into this creative world that is not natural to him.
Right. Trying to get into an MFA program in English or literature or something like that.
Right. But with all this stuff going on with Zoe, with the Valley Verified article that's targeting her, it starts to open up this argument between Zoe and Damien. And Zoe ends up using that vulnerability that Damien has shown against him.
Mm.
And she thinks that Damien's against her. She thinks that Damien's for Lillian. She is pretty much thinking that everyone is out to get her, including this guy that has been so willing to go out of his way to protect her, but also to nurture her and help her feel like a part of the team.
Right, which I feel is Zoe's downfall. It's Zoe only seeing Lillian as competition and only seeing Damien as this person she's trying to get to know rather than this person she's kind of starting to fall in love with, I think.
Right. So I want to get to one more topic in our big read, and it's a
Mm.
big one.
Mm.
But before we do that, let's kind of go over some of the stuff I've been noticing, and Lillian's one of them. So Zoe, like you said, is so against Lillian, and I think as readers, I'm thinking as readers, at least from my standpoint, I see Lillian as a friend to Zoe.
I see the same thing. I think that Lillian is trying to take care of Zoe in her own way. Even though it's stoic, she's not the same kind of stoic as Damien is. I think she's kind of aloof in the way that she relates to Zoe as a coworker rather than as a friend.
Right. I just think she's Asian. Like, this seems like something that I would do. It seems
Mm.
such a normal part of what I see. It's someone that is willing to protect someone, but not necessarily having to go out of their way verbally or throw on this whole show and pony to try to get this person to believe that I'm their friend. It's much more
Mm.
being their friend than saying that I'm their friend.
For sure. She's not trying to sugarcoat things or try to make her words kinder. She just says what she says.
Yeah. And I think the issue is Zoe is in this competitive nature,
Hmm.
and the only other female she sees at this company is Lillian.
Right.
And I don't know, this seems like a thing that has happened as we've limited the role of women in higher positions, is it becomes much more competitive in the office amongst women rather than people pushing each other up.
Right.
And it seems like that becomes the issue with Zoe. She sees Lillian as a competitor. She sees Lillian as someone who's doing better than her. So Zoe's not thinking we can both be in this position.
Mm.
She's thinking I need to be better than Lillian because Lillian's obviously trying to push me down so that she can hold her position. But one of the actions that I see from Lillian is astonishing because it's that part where Bill is trying to take Zoe out to dinner after the Logan Horson meeting,
Yeah.
and it's so creepy. So
It's like super cringe.
yeah, so in the end, Lillian comes to Zoe's rescue and I think saves the day because
Mhm.
otherwise I think something bad would happen.
Yeah.
Because Bill asks Zoe to come to this private dinner and it's at this fancy restaurant. As they're having dinner, he's asking Zoe to come up to his hotel room so that they can discuss something in private. And as much as Zoe's trying to push it off to the side, he's definitely making an advance, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially because he's trying to bring the champagne with them.
Yeah, it's a real issue. And this is obviously something we've heard a lot about within higher authority roles where they try to take advantage of people that are their subordinates or
Yeah,
beneath them.
right.
So this is a real life issue.
Mm-hmm.
Zoe knows it. I can see her brain turning and spinning and being like, how do I get out of this situation?
I feel like she doesn't know it. I think her subconscious does. She feels like it's wrong, but she's still willing to give him the benefit of the doubt.
See, I see Zoe as a person that wants to do as well in her job as possible,
Yeah.
and she's willing to do almost anything to get that done.
Mm-hmm.
But I think she knows she's putting herself in a bad spot because she tries to reject him 3 times.
Right.
At a certain point, there's no more that she could do. And I think that's where she's like, I guess I got to do this. And
Mm.
I think, at least my perspective of it was, She was gonna figure out what to do if something worse had come out. But at that point, she's like, I'll go up to the hotel room and at least see what the situation is.
Mm,
I think Zoe is a very intelligent individual, but I think she's stuck with trying to be very good at her job.
that's fair. I mean, this isn't the only time he's made an advance on her. Later in the read, he also takes her aside and holds her hand to comfort her, quote unquote, but
Right.
it's gross.
Right. And the way Lillian approaches this situation by pretty much stopping it right off the way, being like,
Mm-hmm.
no, we shouldn't go to a hotel room. This just needs to stop right now. Like, I'll take Zoe back to her hotel room.
Mm-hmm.
She clearly knows what's going on,
Yeah.
which makes me think that either Bill has done this with someone else in the past, or Bill has tried to do this with Lillian in the past.
Mm,
That was a super icky part.
yes.
So then let's turn the wheel and get to, I think, the juiciest part about this read.
Mm,
And that was in the very last chapter. Throughout all this mess, Zoe has had one friend, at least one extremely accountable friend in the Bay Area,
mm-hmm.
and that was Bernadette.
Yes.
Up till this point, we knew a little bit about Bernadette. One of the things that we knew was that she was engaged and she had a
Mm-hmm.
fiance. And the plot twist happens when we meet Bernadette's fiance.
Yes. When we, as readers, meet Bernadette's fiance and Zoe meets Bernadette's fiance, it turns out that Zoe knows this person, or at least has seen this person almost on a daily basis.
Right. And she recognizes him. She's not exactly sure if it is him,
Mm-hmm.
but she's pretty positive that it is Lillian's current boyfriend.
Because Lillian has a picture with him on her desk.
Right. This is where the read ends. We
Mm.
don't really know if it is him. I mean, Zoe does ask, do you have a twin? And he says no. Going into our predictions and what we think might be happening, do you think this is Lillian's boyfriend and Bernadette's fiance all at the same time?
So I'm thinking that there's something deeper here. Like you mentioned, Lillian might have had an encounter with Bill that's similar to what was happening with Zoe. So what I'm thinking is that Marcus is Lillian's friend and is posing as her boyfriend just to get Bill off her back.
I was thinking the same thing, either friend or cousin or something.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know a whole lot about how Marcus looks, so we
Right.
don't know if he's Asian. At least, I don't think I picked that up in the read.
Right. What I remember in a previous read is that Lillian and Marcus had a similar haircut.
Hmm.
So I don't know if that means this is a white person with a haircut like Lillian's or
Hmm.
this is an Asian person with similar haircut as Lillian.
Right. There's always the chance that it very much is another plot twist that Bernadette and Lillian are dating the same person,
Mm-hmm.
but it seems unlikely and untrue to their characters.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm gonna bank on the fact that Bill is a sleazeball and Lillian is trying to protect herself, and Zoe is seeing this all wrong.
Yes, I think so too.
Where do you think the rest of the story goes? Like, where do you think this resolves with Zoe? Where do you think the story of FitPick goes? And yeah, like, where is this story going and how is it ending?
My prediction, at least with Zoe and Damien, I think they're gonna make up
Make up or make out?
both.
Wow.
And I think that with FitPick, things are gonna come crashing down. I don't know if it's going to be a full dissolving of the company, but I don't think it goes well with their venture capitalists.
Hmm. I don't think I was thinking that. I don't know what I was thinking, but that makes a lot of sense.
Mm.
I'm hoping that with FitPick possibly dissolving, that Bill's the one that goes down, but everyone else finds a
Mm.
magnificent job. And
Right.
yeah, Zoe and Damien have to end up together. That's a must. And hopefully Zoe realizes everything that Lillian's done for her. And I feel like there's probably way more behind the scene that Lillian's been doing to uplift Zoe.
Yeah,
So I'm hoping all of that comes out and yeah, we have this great relationship and then Cassie and Bjorn moved to San Francisco so that they could start a whole separate company and everything's happy go lucky. Like this book seems like it ends with a happy go lucky.
for sure. It's a definite HEA, happily ever after type of book.
but it would be wild if it was more like one of the other books that we read where it's just like death.
and destruction.
Yeah, probably not, but we won't know until we get to our fourth and final read, and that's going to be
Pages 277 through 359, and that's chapters 35 through 44.
Yep, and that will finish this book for us. If you're excited about how this book ends and you want to talk to us, how can people reach out to us?
Y'all can email us at asianbookclubpod@gmail.com or join the conversation on Instagram at asianbookclubpod.
We also have our website, which is asianbookclubpod.com, that has our bookshop, that have books that we've read in the past, books that we recommend, and books that we plan to read in the future.
And a great way to support us is to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast.
Otherwise, make sure to be happy, be healthy, and read a book.
Ingat! Bye!